I was on the charisma question. My children say Riz, my children say Riz. Like it's like charisma has its own kind of internet avatar, which is Riz, as in like, Dad, I think you got the W Riz, which is like nicest thing my son's ever said to me. Yeah, no, quite right. I mean, that's more than I could do, but I think I suggested some things. There were some causal arrows here of things that have changed. Just to name two, like the things that I was talking about are actually things which have changed over the last 30 years. So wealth concentration has changed dramatically in the last 30 years, especially in Russia and the United States and some other places. And I do think that their quantity does become quality. Like at a certain, like if the richest people in your country have $500 million, that's one thing. But when they have $200 billion, that's already a different thing. Like that's already wealth which exceeds that of many countries, and you think of, like, it's easier to think of them as gods at that point, because and to hope for them to hope that they'll behave like gods, that they'll have favor upon you, right? That they will heed your sacrifice, at least the sacrifice of the 18 hours of your day that you spent in front of their platform, that they will, I think at that level, things change. At a certain point, they change. And for me, it does have to do with the accumulation of wealth, because it's not like, and it's a relationship, because it's not as though, it's not about how people are poorer. It's about the emergence it's about the fact that, I'm slightly making this up and you can all correct me, but roughly, half the wealth in my country is owned by people, like, it could be owned by you, it isn't, but like it's roughly it's this number of people in a couple more rooms, right? That's weird. And it means that those people are in fact in a different position than everyone else. They're in a different position than people who have $1 million or $10 million. If you have $1 billion or $10 billion, you're in an objectively different position, and you're also you're in this level where there is no level above you. Like that's it. Like you're past the point where the money even makes sense, and so you're in this sort of ethereal plane where you're with other people, not really quite sure what to do, which is another aspect of this tragedy. Is that in general they have no idea what to do, and they're unhappier than middle class people, but. So that's part of it. And then tech is also the change in technology, right? So 30 years ago, we were not spending, Americans now spend 14 hours a day in front of, no, sorry, I don't want to exaggerate. Americans now spend 9 hours a day in front of screens. That's a lot of time, right? That's a lot of time, more time than we sleep. And that didn't used to be true. Like sleep used to be number one, and now screen staring is number one. And that's a very different corporeality. It's a very different relationship. And I think like that itself justifies asking these big questions. So like when I call the phone an oracle, you can go many other ways with this, but I do think that the phone is a qualitative change, like the bottomlessness of it, right? Like the way that it's not a tool because it's not directed at doing any particular thing, right? It's rather that there's a bottomlessness of what it might be able to do for you. That's new, right? Like, and the way that instead of allowing you to do things, it actually makes you less capable in almost every aspect of life. Right? That's new. And so those are two of the changes, like those are two of the mechanisms. And it goes to your question, like in terms of what one could do on a micro scale, like at a political scale, the United States really needs to tax people. That's what the state is there for in the first place. Like when one talks about the transitions from these kinds of political orders to other kinds of political orders, being able to tax people is pretty close to the top of what that transition means. And keeping screens out of schools, like keeping screens away from children in your own life, keeping screens away from, like those are the kinds of things one can do, which would actually push us back a little bit.